All right, so this is game 3 of the National League Division Series between the Phillies and the Braves, except it's not. I'll be there later today. This is Insurance Toolkits podcast episode, however you want to decide it. It might be 28, 29, or season 2. I think I've lost that battle, but we have Jordan on with us today, one of the top producers in the industry, one of KSKJ's top producers, somebody who actually knows what he's talking about, because many people who talk online do not. Yes, I just said that, recorded and live on my channel. We also have Colton on with us today, but Jordan, introduce yourself, say hi, let the folks that are watching know who you are.
Yeah, I'm Jordan Cantwell. I live in Northwest Arkansas. I'm a Razorback fan. I'm also an Office fan. But yeah, I'm a field agent. I don't recruit at all. I just sell, and yeah, that's me.
Outstanding. So you've been in the business about how long?
2 years. It's 2 years in September.
Outstanding. What did you do prior to being in the insurance business?
I did air traffic for about 5 years with the FAA. So I was an air traffic controller. Long story to that. I won't go into that, but I sold insurance for State Farm for a year before joining Final Expense. I realized that I did not want a 9 to 5. It was just too boring for me. So,
hey Chris, I got a question right off the rip here, if you don't mind. I'm curious, Jordan, to see. So you said you made it an explicit point that you sell, you don't recruit. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little more? Kind of what's your logic behind that, and kind of how is that playing a part in your role as an agent?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's fine to recruit, but I've only been doing this 2 years. I don't feel like at this point that I want a downline agent. I want to focus on producing right now, building up my residuals, really perfecting what I'm doing, and eventually maybe that might be something in the future. But at this point, I have no desire to have a downline agent. I do have my brother-in-law who I'm helping out right now to get started, but I told him as soon as he's ready to cut the cord, he's fine to go out on his own. It's not something that I want in my life right now. It seems like a lot, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that a great portion of the industry sells the belief that you have to build and recruit to be successful. But I think that you could be just as successful building and supporting your own family and your own self and your own mentality, not always having to build an agency. So hearing somebody from that perspective is also a little bit different this morning too.
Right.
So before you did insurance, you talked a little bit about what you did prior. Did you find any transferable skills, things that you did in one job that kind of helped you with this one?
Yeah, with air traffic, you have to have confidence because you're telling pilots what to do, and you have to really convey that through the mic when you're giving an instruction. And that's a pretty transferable skill, I'd say. When you're giving a presentation, you're trying to get someone to buy a life insurance policy. If you don't have confidence, they're going to see right through that. So, that was something that I was able to bring in immediately, that even being a new agent gave me a leg up, I think, on a lot of presentations.
Colton, do you find that a lot of times agents that turn out to be successful did something prior to the business that helped them be successful in this business?
I think that not necessarily. I don't think that there's a like a hierarchy, if you will, of like you have to start here and then go here and go here and then end up insurance rather. I think you may agree with this. I think we might have talked about this before in Dallas, that agents who come into this fresh and are just, open eyes, open ears, ready to listen and do as they're told, oftentimes, if they do what they're told, are going to find this to be a very successful endeavor for them. I think that with that, though, air traffic control, I think that the key point there, it can definitely help you. I don't think it's required, but I will say it can definitely help because being able to effectively communicate, like you said, Jordan, is probably the single most important aspect in giving a presentation, especially for insurance purposes. So I would say that it's not a requirement, but it can definitely help.
Well said.
Yeah, I would say another thing, speaking to your point, when I was doing air traffic, the training with it was very much stick to the script, follow the rules. And so I brought that with me as well. I plugged into a system that, allowed me to, I basically absorbed everything that I could about the system. I followed everything to a T. And I was, writing $20,000 a month pretty quickly, just off of that system. And then whenever I was able to go and plug into what I thought was a better system, I went in with that as well, with the same mentality, and just tried to really fully embrace it and increase my production that way. But I agree entirely with what you're saying. You have to, whatever the system is, buy into it. There's agents that use flip charts. There's agents that teach door knocking only, no phone calls. Whatever your upline and your system is, just follow that. You don't, with all due respect to you new agents, you don't know what you're doing yet. Your upline, if they're a proven producer, they know what they're doing. Follow their system and you will be successful.
Perfect. That's the perfect transition moment to talking a little bit about your system. Talk to us about, first off, your schedule. Like, what does your week to week look like? Because I think probably a very consistent schedule that maybe somebody watching this video can pick up on and duplicate.
Yeah, so I get 25 direct mail leads a week. So I organize my leads on Friday, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. I start calling my leads. I set appointments for Monday. I don't stop calling until I've got at least 8 appointments. I'm usually aiming for 10 appointments for Monday. So Monday is just a field day. I go out and run my appointments. Sometimes I get no-showed. I will door knock the leads that didn't answer or didn't have a phone number on the lead. And then on Tuesday morning, I wake up at 9 o'clock, or I wake up and dial at 9 o'clock again, set appointments for Wednesday. And my goal there is to have another 6 appointments, 5 or 6 appointments at least. And then Tuesday afternoon, I will go out and door knock some more. And then Wednesday, I run those appointments and I door knock the rest of the leads. So typically by the end of the day, Wednesday, I've hit my goal and I can stay home Thursday, catch up on paperwork, or if I need to, I can go out and try to conserve some business, whatever I need to do. But my goal is to have my AP where it needs to be on Wednesday so that I can have Thursday to catch up on other things.
What would you say?
And then Friday, I don't really work.
All good there. What's your weekly goal for production?
6,000. So 6,000, when I say goal, that's not what I'm aiming to get to. And like, oh, if I don't get 6,000, then that's okay. No, 6,000 is my minimum. Like I have to have that to feel accomplished. If I fall short of that, I will absolutely go out on Thursday and try to write more business to get me over that 6,000. So 6,000, I basically hit that consistently every week because of that mentality of I'm not going to fall short of my goal.
Mm-hmm. Would it be fair to say that that goal has something to do with your budget, your finances, your income? It's not just some made up number that sounds good on paper.
Okay, so I started out with that mentality of let me see what I needed to hit to pay my bills and etc. So my goal started out as 2,500 my first week in the field when I first started doing this. And then I found that I could hit 2,500. So I raised my goal to 3,000 and then 4,000. And then all of last year it was 5,000. So it's a goal that has been growing. I think 6,000 is about as high as I want to go because I'm working my butt off for this 6,000. And but it's definitely doable. It's just all about mindset and drive.
I think, Colton, what's interesting is that Jordan kind of stretched himself further past what he needs to, and that it's also like forcing yourself out of a comfortable zone. Growth dies when you get comfortable and you never get past that point. So seeing him stretch himself past what he knows he can do shows him what he really can do. Jordan, you've qualified for several carrier trips. We've been on at least one of them together so far. Is this system helping you get to those trips, or is there any kind of magic behind qualifying for these carrier trips?
So as a new agent, I think that you have a tendency to just write different companies. You contract with like 20 different companies or whatever. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, and then you write 10 different companies that year. And if you spread yourself too thin, you're not going to qualify for anything. So I actually realized that pretty early on. And I decided to pick 2 companies that I really like and write them for everybody that could qualify, and then have, other companies if I need them. But I would say 90% of my business goes with 2 companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important for agents to realize. That's going to help you out a lot with persistency. It's going to help you out a lot with just being able to maintain your book, and it avoids chargebacks, because if you're writing the same 2 companies, then you don't have to worry about some random chargeback from another company that you never write. So
I remember when I went to try and qualify for the Transamerica Hawaii trip, I think it was 2018, 2017. It took a year and a half to qualify for this trip. It was insane. Like, what was I even thinking? 140 or 50,000 stretched over nearly 2 years. And Transamerica back then paid monthly. Like, they didn't pay on issue. They weren't paid right away. I got used to getting paid next month. And I would see this long commission statement of all the business that month they got paid. I'd get these nice deposits, even on a low contract at the time. And there'd be like 2,500, 3,000 sometimes in chargebacks, being honest, baked into that. But because there was so much other business, it didn't affect me at all.
Right.
You write a little bit here and writing a little bit there and a little bit there. You know what ends up happening is that debt comes when you least expect it, in the form of your carrier contracts canceled now. So focusing your business makes your business run a lot quicker. Next question for you. Selling during the holidays. It's important to find a healthy work-life balance, but I think some people think the moment it gets below 40 degrees, they can't sell a thing until it gets warm again, and then they're nowhere to be found until springtime. So where's the happy medium that you like to practice with the holidays?
So holidays in general, like federal holidays, I'll take off that one day if they're closed for, whatever federal holiday. But as far as like Thanksgiving and Christmas, what I've done is I take off the day before, the day of, and the day after Thanksgiving, and then I take off the full week for Christmas. But other than that, I'm in the field. People are still buying policies. You could probably take off more time if you wanted to. You can probably tell that I'm not the type that likes to take off a ton. So to me, I'm trying to make sure I maximize what I'm doing, and I'm not going to take off and use excuses to take more days off. I'm trying to find less days to take off.
Cool. I think we should do
fewer days
on how many quotes are run between like December and January versus the year, just to see if there's any activity level. Because I bet, speaking to baseball, there's a lot of industry analytics we could derive, because so many in the industry use insurance toolkits. Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about trips and systems and such. Also during this time of year is AEP. Some agents are going to cross-sell. Some are going to completely abandon final expense for 7 weeks. Some final expense agents without a health license are going to be massively distracted because they're going to hear the objection, I thought this was about my Medicare, and not know what to do. So how do you maintain the same amount of production without being distracted during AEP?
So I had my very first year that I was in the business. Like I said, I started in September. So the next month was AEP, and I was a new agent. So I thought, oh, well, I'll just participate. And I was already health licensed. So I went and tried to do AEP and final expense. That was as a new agent, that ended up costing me a ton of money, because Every time you go and sit and talk about Medicare for a full day, that's a day that you're taking away from final expense.
Right.
So I learned that lesson pretty quickly. AEP is no different than any of the rest of the year for me. I just go out and continue doing what I do. I don't let it distract me. It's a smoke screen from these people that the objection you get from the client, it's a smoke screen. Don't listen to that. But yeah, just stay focused. Don't have shiny object syndrome. That can, and I've seen it, that can run you out of the business. Do not have shiny object syndrome. It's one of the biggest agent killers out there.
I'd love to spend an hour on just that topic. I'm sure I have at least 3 training calls that include that topic if I searched it. Shiny object syndrome kills average to above average to successful agents on a regular basis. It can come as small as a carrier that you think is cool, but it turns out they actually suck. You just didn't know it. It could come as easy as this new, I'm going to sell IULs virtually.
Yeah.
What?
Or ACA, the new thing.
Oh yeah, I'm going to sell ACA at a high level. And then you realize ACA pays as earned and you don't have the money to do it. Like there's so many shiny objects. I'm going to go do this. And all of a sudden you fail to doing that. If what you're doing is working, just keep doing it. Colton, I'm fairly confident Sean Mike said that on stage in Dallas. And we talk a lot about conventions we've gone to. You think I'm addicted to them? I probably am. Did you say that there, or am I hallucinating that?
No, they did. Yeah, that was definitely brought up on multiple occasions because I think that is such a common, it's such a commonality in this industry. So yeah, it's something that everybody on the high level has to bring up and has to make people aware of it. Otherwise, it's going to keep running its course.
I think sometimes too, people get afraid of thinking, well, this is working. Now I need to change it. Like if this thing you're doing is working, just keep doing it. If selling in an urban area works for you, keep doing it. If selling in a rural area works for you, keep doing it. If this sales system you're working is working, keep working it. Like you don't have to change just for the sake of changing things.
Right.
McDonald's hasn't all of a sudden become the Capitol Grill. It's still a McDonald's 50, 60, 70 years later. Yep. And that's why they're a successful business and a franchise. Jordan, you sell a lot of 2 carriers, but one of those carriers has gotten a little bit more cumbersome over time. Why hasn't that become an excuse for you in the business? Like, talk to us about adapting through change as carriers do make changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that I realized early on is that these carriers are constantly tweaking things, and it's usually not beneficial for you, the agent. When they're making tweaks, it's usually hurting their product. It's usually hurting the sales process, and you just have to overcome it. It's just like any other obstacle. You can't let it slow you down. So yeah, you just have to see it for what it is, and at the same time, don't be afraid to pivot and adjust. Like you were saying earlier, agents want to change what's working. Well, if something's not working, don't be afraid to pivot away from that. I tried working in a state that or in a county that wasn't great for me. I canceled that county out with my lead provider a few months later because it just wasn't working great for me. So as an agent, you have to constantly be able to adjust and overcome different obstacles.
I think we got a good one there too we could run on. We talked about analytics and how Toolkit could probably uncover a lot of analytics for the industry. Colton, how many times do you think an agent makes a change, but they made it using small sample size? It's a baseball term. They said 1 week in a county, it didn't work. So now this whole county, nobody buys final expense coverage. How many agents do you think fall victim to making small sample size decisions?
Yeah, I think a big percentage of them will try something for such a short amount of time. And if it doesn't work in that specific instance, then they write it off entirely. Another big issue kind of in addition to that is I think a lot of agents, because of that problem, are letting off the gas before they even have success. You know, there's agents I know agents, personally who've been in the field for 8 years and are still in the field 6 days a week. It's kind of like what Jordan said in the beginning. You can almost wrap that up in terms of if you're intentional, you're purposeful, and you run a lot of activity, you're going to crush it. But if you're going to say, I'm going to go try this area for a little bit, you pick one specific zip code and you go maybe just have a bad day there, don't write off that entire county as, oh, this is a bad area. Or even more importantly with leads, you go try a new lead company and you buy some internet leads, and maybe you buy one batch that you just didn't have the best conversion on. And then you write that entire company off as, oh, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't work. These are bad leads. Bad leads don't exist for good salesmen. That's what I like to say. So I think that plays true in a lot of ways.
Jordan, small sample size. A lot of agents make good and bad opinions based off of very limited data. Have you ever witnessed that or experienced it before?
Oh yeah, it happens with new agents, especially. They have like this shiny object syndrome, especially, and then like the sky is falling syndrome as well, where oh, what are we going to do? The cost of direct mail is going up, and they panic and just ditch direct mail and jump into a whole new type of lead, or they ditch face-to-face and jump into telesales based on 1 month of trying to make it work. It happens all the time. That's another huge thing there's a lot of agent killers out there, but that's another one that's a big problem for new agents for sure.
Instantly thinking that the other thing has to be better because the thing you're doing is difficult. I think sometimes we discount the fact that there is a certain level of difficulty to what we do. It isn't technical difficulty. It isn't like brain surgery or rocket science or some deep intensive concept, but there is some level of difficulty to it. Like if you're going to be making 250 grand, 300 grand, $1 million a year, you have to assume there comes with some level of difficulty. If you're making a small wage on an hourly wage in a retail environment, that's not going to be hard, but the pay is commensurate to the amount of challenges that you're going to encounter. We got about a few months until next year. Do you have any goals that you're looking to accomplish next year, or changes, or talk to us about what you're thinking about for 2023?
I'm looking to see who I'm going to write as my 2 go-to carriers. I'm thinking about making changes there. I want to see what I'm going to set as far as my goal for production. I think I'm probably going to keep it where it's at and just keep trying to do what I'm doing. But really the big change, I think, is going to be just changing my carriers around because of what we were talking about earlier. So, but yeah, just sticking to the grind, man.
So making adjustments to carriers, I think, what decides, in your opinion, what a good and a bad lead carrier is? Because if you're only selling 2, 3, or 4, you got to have one that you can run hard on. With the last few minutes we have, talk to an agent listening about how to pick out a core carrier.
So, and I've heard you say this before. I think it's good advice. When you're starting out as a new agent, just pick one carrier in your brain that you're going to write for every house that you walk into. Doesn't matter who it is. Pick somebody that has decent prices, a little bit of flexibility in underwriting, and true Social Security billing. Those are the 3 things that I would recommend. So walk in, plan to write that carrier. Do not pull out a second carrier based on price. Only pull out a second carrier if they cannot qualify for the first carrier. That would be my advice. I try to have one carrier that is my go-to that I can use for, 80% of people, maybe 70% of people. And then if they can't qualify for that, I have a flexible backup carrier that has a little bit more flexibility in underwriting that I can use for that person. So basically every house I walk into, they're going to qualify for one of those 2 carriers unless they have, cancer or something like that. So.
Well said. Well said. I think any agent watching, if they only watch that 90 seconds, can figure out how to make their business better by working with less carriers and how to pick a lead carrier. But over the course of the last 20 minutes, there's been tons of valuable content for an agent's perspective. Colton, anything you wanted to mention before we wrap up today's video?
I think that I kind of touched on it for a second there, but and Jordan, you can attest to make sure that I'm giving still relative and good advice, is if you are intentional with what you're doing in the field, the things that you're doing are purposeful towards your business, and you have high consistent activity, if you do those 3 things, you're going to have success. If the biggest thing that drives agents away is they don't want to go out. I mean, you literally said that Saturdays is just one of those days that you're working. You know, you're calling, you're setting appointments, you're doing these things. It's if you're having high activity, you're being intentional with that and purposeful. The only choice is to have success on the outside. So that's kind of what I just wanted to leave it with. And it's not just a motivational piece. If you can actually, you know, shut off the phone, shut off the news, shut off the radio, and just, you know, conceptualize in your head, man, I got to be purposeful today. I have to be intentional. And even if my leads aren't showing up and I'm getting no showed, I got a door knock. I have to run activity. If you just really, really believe those principles, you can make it in this business or any sales, real estate, insurance, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think good practical advice for a new agent, if you're in the field or telesales, whatever, talk to yourself each morning, give yourself a pep talk. You know, I do it. It might be weird, but I do it on my drive to my first appointment. I just give myself a little pep talk and help get my brain in, get my game face on, really. And I think it makes a huge difference. I think it helps keep your goals in perspective. And so when you walk into that first house, you know what the goal is and what you need to do to accomplish that goal. So practical advice for you new agents, talk to yourself.
That's okay. That's absolutely actionable, valuable content that we appreciate you sharing with us this morning. So again, like the video. If you haven't, comment below and subscribe to the channel. We're growing every week. We're growing with our views. We want to grow with our subscribership as well, because you might be watching this video, but your likes, comments, and subscriptions will allow YouTube to show it to other people that don't even know it exists. And maybe something Jordan said today could help somebody else be successful in the industry. So appreciate everyone being here today. And most importantly, Jordan, for giving this content to you this morning. Take care. Where's the record button? There it is.